Hello everybody, and bats. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily, but you can call me Ems. And I'm here today doing a bit of a video response. Not that that's an actual thing on YouTube anymore. That's how long that I've had YouTube for and remember that kind of thing. Personally, I didn't have a channel back when that happened because I didn't really have a camera. But now, this is a bit of a video response to this past week's Pagan Perspectives question. There's been a lot of these that I really want to do video responses to, so I may go back and do a couple of video responses to a few of them. So that's where I'm going to go for. But this week's was really interesting to me. Is it okay? Just like there's a lot of these is it okay questions that come up in pagan communities. So this is something that I really think it's interesting in trying to answer these questions, because a lot of these questions are coming from people seeing like information on both sides of these questions. So like, is it okay if blank? And then one camp is saying yes, one camp is saying no. They're like, what do I do? What camp am I in? Which one's right? Here's the thing, in witchcraft and paganism, whether it's right or not will depend very heavily on your path. So here's something I'm going to just talk about. I'm going to talk about all these, is it okay? So I'm going to read the original message. I'm getting this one from Kara's descriptions, mainly because I watch all of Kara's videos on Pagan Perspective. That might just be because we're friends. I don't know. Anyway, so this week's topic from Jenni B, is it okay in your path? The main questions I keep seeing in some of the groups I'm in are, is it okay questions? Is it okay to buy my own tarot deck? Has been coming up a lot recently. Is it okay to have a temporary altar? Is it okay to keep my altar in a box, cupboard, or particular room? One that really boggled my brain recently is it okay to cut my own hair? It might be interesting to have the host answer the general question of, is it okay, within their tradition. Most of the time, people who ask these sorts of questions in the groups will get the answer, yes, if it works for you, or yes, if it isn't hurting anyone. I don't know if there is much difference between the answers people would get from the traditions represented on the channel, but it seems to be a common anxiety out there for a lot of people. And yes, it is a common anxiety for a lot of people. When I first started on my path of paganism and witchcraft, I was like, is it even okay to be doing this? And it's not coming from, I have a Christian background or anything, because I don't. My family's Christian. Well, anyway, I don't know if you've seen any of those videos, but basically, I was raised in like a pseudo-Christian, agnostic sort of zone. I really only went to church with my grandmother and on Christmas Eve. That's pretty much it. So that's where I'm coming from. So like I wasn't thinking, is it okay to practice witchcraft? But more on the lines of, this isn't one of the big five. Is this okay? And also like, is what I'm doing okay? Because if it is a tradition, I didn't quite, when I first started out, I didn't really realize there were so many traditions and so many ways that witchcraft and paganism is expressed. So let's go into a little bit of these questions. So the first one is it okay to buy my own tarot deck? And I say yes. So, but here's the thing, so as Kara mentioned in her video, this really does come from it is best practice for your first deck to be bought for you as a gift. So the idea is that the person is picking this out for you. And as she said, because people think it's not okay to buy your own tarot deck, people are going into stores with their parents or with their friends, and their friend pays for the deck, but the person it's for picks it out. So I personally have always found that when I pick out my own decks, they tend to not work as well for me, and I don't have the right energy with them because I don't have that ability. Well, I didn't. I can now. I didn't have the ability to go, is this deck right for me? So I bought a lot of decks that ended up being not for me, and I ended up giving them as gifts to people, and it turns out that they were perfect for that person. So I have a lot of decks, and the majority of them were bought for me by my friend Willow Moonlight on here on YouTube, and my friend Jay. And I think that's pretty much who's bought me decks. I don't know if Cameron's bought me a deck. Have you bought me a deck, Cameron? I don't remember. Bad friend. Oh. So yes, a lot of my decks have been purchased for me, but something that I've ended up doing for a lot of people because they wanted to get into tarot, but this came out of me being in university. I didn't have a lot of extra money at the time to just go around buying people tarot decks who wanted to go into tarot and wanted to get into it, but didn't want to buy their own first deck. What I ended up actually doing is either they would give me a gift card for the store that has tarot cards, which in my city is Chapters. It's just like a Barnes and Noble, Waterstones, like it's that kind of, it's like a chain bookstore. So Chapters Indigo, they would give me a gift card for that, and I would go in by myself, pick out the deck for them, and then pay for it. But it's them physically paying for it, but it's me picking it out. Something else that we've done is if they have tap on their card, I'll take their card in, they'll wait outside, or I'll go into the section by myself. I'll pick out the book, the deck for them, and then we will go to the cash and they will pay for it without seeing what the deck is. And every single time I've done this for somebody, the deck has ended up working for them or being some kind of something on their path. So that is what I've done for several people in my life. And people seem to really enjoy that because they get the same energy of a friend of mine who's into tarot and understands energies and stuff. Pick this out for me. Like, this deck is for me kind of thing. So that's what we ended up doing. But so that I didn't have to bear the brunt of all those costs, they paid for it themselves. And in essence, they bought their own tarot deck. But in practice, it's like it was a gift in a way. It's kind of like the gift was me picking it out, I guess. I don't know. So that is one thing that we do. I commented that on Kara's video, but I just wanted to make a video talking about that a bit. The next one, is it okay to have a temporary altar? 100%. It is completely okay to have a temporary altar. In fact, I don't currently have an altar set up because I just kept moving my living room stuff around and I don't have quite the right spot for it at the moment. I do personally tend to like having a permanent altar, or at least an altar that is out most of the time. So I do prefer that personally in my path, but there has been many times when I just can't have one out all of the time. So an example of that is when I lived in my apartment that was a bachelor apartment, and I didn't have that much room. I did have my altar a couple of times up, but it wasn't up all of the time. So I have had temporary altars a lot of times. A lot of people have travel altars or altars in a box. So like it's a chest with all their altar tools, and then when they need it, they open it up, take everything out, close the box, and the box becomes the table that is their altar. So that is a common one that I see, or people having just a shelf of their altar tools and then having a blank table, like an empty table, and that becomes their altar when they need it. And I think that's a great option as well. But just as a personal thing, I really like having my own altar set up at all times. I'm not really in the broom closet, as you would say. As you probably know, my mom watches this channel and comments on like everything. Hi, Mom. But so like she's just kind of gotten used to the idea that I have an altar there. I don't know how she feels about it. She probably still thinks I'm weird, but I mean, that's just kind of my life. That's who I am. So I just kind of have that up all the time, and it's not about hiding who I am or whatever. It's just about convenience, and I want it up at all times, you know? So I'm actually thinking of possibly putting it back up today, but I'm trying to think of where I would like it. I'm considering using the same table I have all the time, but currently there's a record player on it, but I'm thinking of moving the record player because it's a portable one that I could set up at any time, and I could kind of put it underneath of it. Perhaps. We shall see. So the next question is it okay to keep my altar in a box, cupboard, or particular room? And yes, in my path, it perfectly is okay. As I mentioned, the box already, and travel altars and pocket-sized altars are very common, especially in like an Altoids tin and things like that. I've actually thought of making a little pocket altar to have at my office, just a little something, just in case I need a little spiritual pick me up in the middle of the day, you know? Maybe having a little bit of a something there. So I'm thinking of making a little pocket one in like an Altoids tin and see how that goes. In a cupboard or on a bookshelf even is great. I know that Jay puts theirs on a bookshelf most often, and I think that's really great. I will say if you have candles or incense going, it's probably best to have it on the top of the bookshelf, not on a shelf in the bookshelf, if that makes sense, because heat rises and you can burn your bookshelves and cause a fire if you put a candle like on a lower shelf with like wood above it, you know? So it's probably best not to do that, but to have it on the top. But I think that's a great option. I think it's a really cool option for sure. And as for having a particular room for it, like I don't really... I've had altars in a lot of different places. Like when I was sharing an apartment, my altars have always been in my room, like in my personal room, like my bedroom. Since I've been living alone, my altars have always been in the living room because that's where I spend most of my time. So I like it to be where I spend most of my time so that I can see it and remember it and do my work at it, because I find I'm more likely to do my spiritual work if it's there and I can see it and I remember it. And I don't think there is like a particular room you have to have it in. I don't think it would be disrespectful to have your altar in the laundry room or like in the craft room or what have you. I think you could have it in any room. I technically have a mini altar in my kitchen. It's on top of... I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's like the little board right there. It says Bridget, Goddess of the Hearth, and there's like a statue there, and I've got my triquetra trivet and my kitchen witch spoon, which I use when I'm doing kitchen witchy thingies, which I don't really do a lot of, but I would like to get into more. But I got my spoon from the spoon guy, and I'm so excited. So that is like a mini altar right there. So there you go. There's a mini altar in my kitchen. And that one's just kind of on top of my fridge. It works. So there's like many places you can put an altar, and I don't think it would be that disrespectful. Like, I don't think it would be disrespectful to have an altar in the bathroom, for goodness sake. Like, if it's a god of the sea or like a goddess of water or something like that, like, why not in the bathroom where like most of your water is in your house? I think that would make quite a lot of sense. Obviously, personally, some people might not want it in the bathroom because they're like, that's where I poop. I would rather not poop where my deities are. I would like them to not see me in that moment. That sort of thing. And then the other one that is really interesting and is a little mind-boggling is it okay to cut my own hair? Yeah, I'd say so. Like, I have 100% cut my hair for deities before, like as a sacrifice in a way, like shaving all of my hair off, which I've done multiple times in a lot of contexts. I've like dedicated that action to a deity. Usually I was going to shave my head off, good lord, shave my hair off anyway, but like I decided to dedicate it to a deity. Sometimes when I get a haircut, I'll dedicate that to a deity. Most oftentimes it's Morrigan. That just happens a lot. That sort of thing. I think it's perfectly fine to cut your own hair. I would just say, don't cut your own hair if it is an impulse, because you may regret it. At least think about it a little bit before you cut your own hair, but that's just from, the many, many years I have of having, from going from shaved head to long hair to mohawk to shaved head to long hair to mohawk. Maybe just think about it a little bit. I've ended up loving like every stage of hair except for like this is where I'm okay with my hair because it's starting to lay down on itself again. But like when I first shave it off, when it gets to about this long, it just sticks up and I hate it. I hate it. I like being bald, but I hate this part. When it's this long, it just sticks right out from your head. I hate it. I'm trying to think of some other is it okay questions, because those are the ones that were mentioned in the actual like question to Pagan Perspective. So when it comes to other things that I've heard, is it okay to mix deities from like to mix pantheons rather? Is it okay to do that? Is it okay to have multiple deities or multiple pantheons? Is it okay to have two deities from completely different pantheons in the same ritual or in the same circle? That is a common one that I see a lot, and I see a lot for either side. Okay to mix pantheons. I would be a huge hypocrite if I said it wasn't okay, because I do. I personally work the majority of my work with the Celtic Pantheon. I work mostly with Celtic deities, such as Caradwen, Morrigan. I work with Cernunnos, sometimes Hearn. Oh goodness, have I mentioned Morgan? Bridget, you know? Lou, I work a lot with Lou actually. So like those are the majority of deities I work with, but I also work with Thor. And I've been in conversations with Odin. He's been trying to get my attention for a long time. Long story. He's been trying to get my attention for a long time, but I don't trust the dude, which is apparently justified. So we're in conversations. I wouldn't say that I work with him yet, but we're in conversations. And I also work still on occasion work with Krishna. Krishna is in the Hindu pantheon, but that's because, again, I have a history of Krishna consciousness in my path. So I do work with Krishna still from time to time. So that is definitely something that I still work with. There have been times that I have worked with the Greek pantheon or Roman pantheons because I have friends who are Hellenic. Willow Moonlight is dedicated to Hecate. So obviously when me and her work together, we often have Hecate involved. I do find that Hecate and Caradwen and Hecate and Caradwen do work very well together, so I find that we kind of can bring those two together. And in Reclaiming Witchcraft, there really is no rule against, well, there's really not many rules at all. There is the principles of unity, which aren't technically rules, but they are if you're going to be with us, you're going to do these things. So, but there, in my community, we mix pantheons all the time. We had a ritual where it was invite a deity of your choice to Mabon. This was this past Mabon. It's invite a deity of your choice and bring a story about them. So that's what we did. We had all kinds of pantheons represented. So that sort of thing happens all of the time. I'm trying to think of... Oh, a lot of songs in Reclaiming have to do with multiple deities from multiple pantheons. Hecate, Caradwen, Dark Mother, take us in. Hecate, Caradwen, let us be reborn. As I mentioned, Hecate and Caradwen do work well together. Let's see, there's also Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Literally, Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 7 completely different goddesses from multiple different pantheons. Hello! So that is something that I do, and I do often. One thing I will say is do your research beforehand and maybe have consultation with the deities before bringing them into a circle together, because maybe those particular deities won't get along together and wreak a little havoc, shall we say. So... for example, even though I know that Krishna would probably get along with almost any other deity, just in my own personal practice, I don't bring Krishna in with any other deity at the moment. except sometimes I work with Krishna as Radha Krishna, which is Krishna and his wife Radha, which is the divine lovers. Sometimes I work with them together, but they are from the same pantheon. So I have thus far not mixed Krishna with any other pantheon, but that's just my personal, I don't feel called to do so. So I think if you're feeling called to do so, and if you kind of do a bit of research beforehand to see if the deities would get along, do a bit of a vibe check, if you will, and that could be a good way to start with that sort of thing. Trying to think of some other is it okay things. Is it okay to work with your animals in circle? That's one that I've had questions for before. And I'd say in your own personal circles, yes, it is perfectly okay to work with your animals because they could very well become a familiar to you, or a familiar spirit could inhabit your animal, your pet. But I will say, don't automatically assume that in community rituals that you can just bring your pet, because we had a situation where somebody wanted to bring their rabbit to Astara, and we were like, no, because not everybody wants to deal with that energy and wants to have to babysit a rabbit basically the whole time, which as much as I love rabbits, I love bunnies, I love me some bunnies, I'm not going to do that. As much as I love Strahd, and he's my little beanie baby, I'm not going to just bring him to a community ritual and assume that he's allowed to be in the room when we do ritual. Like, that's not going to happen. So be smart when you work with your pets, in circle. That's what I have to say about that. So I honestly can't really think of very many other is it okay questions. So I think I'll leave it right there for now. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful slatted lighting, because I'm in front of my kitchen window and it's nice and sunny, but I don't want to fully open the blinds because then everybody in my neighborhood can just see me talking to myself at the table. So yeah. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today, and I love you lots. Bye my bunnies and bats. Subscribe.